Hi, this is Mark Newman, Chief Analyst at TMForum, speaking to you on day 3 of DTW Ignite 2023. Delighted to be joined today by Thomas and Josie from BT and Kailem from Blue Planet. And when we talk a little bit about BT's transformation efforts and then more broadly about what we're seeing around transformation NAS in the telco industry. So maybe Josie, Thomas, I'd ask you to say a little bit about what you do within BT.
Sure. So I'm the chief architect for BT Group within BT. Most of my job at the moment is about how we're modernising our estate and how we are decoupling using ODA and also the legacy switch off.
My name is Thomas Duecke. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Digital at BT. And in my role, where we cover digital strategy, the transformation, the simplification, modernization of the BT Group. But if I summarize what digital at BT is actually here to do. So modernization, engage, and growth.
Thank you. And Josie, if I can come back to you. So within BT's overall transformation, the simplification of the orchestration, delivery of network services is a big part of that. Can you walk us through the benefits? So what first, the benefits that brings to customers, and secondly, benefits to operations?
Yes, and customers first is exactly how we think. So we've absolutely rethought how we do the orchestration and provisioning, separating that very much from the commercial order for a customer. Why? Because the decoupling of an order down into its technical counterparts and the orchestration of that down into the network, the customer does not need to see. And previously, we've added that complexity into our order process, which has lengthened the process for customers to get their goods and get their service. And it's also increased, the issues that are then instilled in that process and calls into call centers as a result. So by decoupling the order, we delight the customer with a very quick order process, and we build once the activation and the provision of that into the network. The advantage of that for our customers is, if you just take the fibre broadband alone that we've been doing with Sienna, we've rethought the process, reduced that process by 40% in terms of the simplicity now that the customer gets. So that means fast activation for our customers. Because we've built it once, and we built it for consumer first, our business customers can take advantage of exactly that provision. What does that mean? It means we've got a standard way of provisioning a particular order for a customer. And because we've built it once, you just add the 10% on. So 90% of what we built for consumer, we could reuse for business. What advantage does that give us? Well, speed to market for number one. So our customers are delighted by the new service that they get, the speed by which that they can consume that in a consumer-like way. And because we were only adding the 10% on, and because we've rethought with Sienna that actual process of orchestration, 50% less in terms of what we're doing from a development perspective. So we've proved that we've used the approach modularization, making sure that we've got clear APIs, really decomposing. The advantage that Sienna has given us in terms of their knowledge of doing this, the platform that has given us a great start in that process, and the work that we've partnered together to make sure that's really well orchestrated. So it's been a fantastic journey so far.
And we're here at DTW, the TMForum show. I mean, to what extent are you using TMForum standards, ODA, Open Digital Architecture, Open APIs?
From the very start, we've always had an approach for modularized, componentized architecture, API, secure by design, cloud.
Yep.
It's how we've then worked with partners such as Sienna, who are modular, API, TMForum, and in the cloud. And as we've worked with ODA, and I talked in my talk yesterday, I showed it's the production layer, which is the ODA production area, It's the service catalog, it's the service orchestration, it's the resource orchestration. All of those components in the ODA is exactly what we've used to get us those benefits.
Excellent.
So we proved it works.
And so looking more broadly, Thomas, at BT's transformation, you know, I know transformation never ends, but where do you feel BT is now?
We're well on the way with our modernization, but we're also looking now and asking ourselves the question: what else we can do? You might have heard, you know, like Hameen Mehta, our Chief Digital Information Officer, 2 days ago talking about, you know, like how the benefits that we had planned just 12 months ago, we're now looking to actually double by exploiting, you know, like tools that's available in AI and through AI and Gen AI.
I think it's important that what we've done so far has been some really solid foundations that we can now actually do that on. It's really difficult to do that on an estate that isn't quite ready for it. But the work, when Thomas says we're on our way because we've now actually got to the point where we've some simpler foundations, simpler product sets, better tech, more modern tech, that will allow us to now take advantage of some of these new things.
And we've been talking largely tech. Can we just talk briefly about people and culture and where we are with that transformation?
Yeah, I think this is a really good point, you know, the question that comes up a lot. I think when we talk about transformation, automation, we also talk quite a lot and doing a lot of things considering the human aspect of it, because it impacts people, it impacts people's jobs, you know, like that they're doing today. And so the way we're doing that, first of all, we're going to drive a lot of this transformation, but a lot will also come in quite a lot, you know, like over a few years period. So there will be natural attrition. That is the other thing we're doing, which I really want to point out, because it's very important to us, is we created a digital campus, and the digital campus is helping people like me that are not a technologist, for example, but many others in call centers, in other jobs, to actually learn digital skills. So one of the things, we had quite a targeted initiative where we engaged with some of our call center agents that will be displaced to some extent, and had them retrained on engineering skills. So basically, we have now people that are served customers, coding apps for customers. I mean, who better is placed, you know, like to code, you know, like an application to understand actually how it feels for a customer coming into a call center and help automate that area. So it's front of mind for us.
And 15,000 hours of training on our digital campus so far.
Yes, and it's quite new. So
yeah.
Excellent. So Kailem, I'm going to thank you sitting there patiently. I'm going to bring you in. So, you know, one of the great privileges that you have working with telcos across the world is taking lessons and learnings from different telcos that you work with. So, I mean, anything specific in terms of what BT is doing that you feel that you can sort of take away and help advise your customers on what they've done well in particular that people can learn from?
Yeah, so I think you're right. The transformations that really succeed is where you look at them from a people, process, and platforms perspective, right? And I think one of the pitfalls a lot of telcos go into is you're just looking at the platforms and the process, right? You may optimize a bunch of batch processes, but you're not necessarily looking at the people transformation or how you collapse the organizations together. So I do agree, BT has looked at this very holistically in terms of your approach. And one thing that we've done is worked with BT also in terms of that vision on how you phase in your automation strategy. How do you modernize from your legacy through to new? So that it's done incrementally. The other challenge I've seen in big transformation projects, if you go big bang, if you go too hard too early, you fail, you put too much risk on the project. So doing this in a step function approach, where you know where your North Star is, but you maybe implement a services management layer initially, then expose the APIs, build the data model, then look to bring in closed loop. Those step functions that get you to that North Star de-risk the project and really shows you tangible value along the way. And I think BT's done a really good job at that.
And if we look specifically at the automation of network services, NAS is obviously a very big talking point in the industry. We're making progress,
Absolutely.
I would hope.
Absolutely, industry-wide. So if I look at open digital architectures and NAS-based models, I look at sort of three key foundation elements that get you there, right? You need to take a hierarchical approach, a separation of your BSS to your services management layer through to your domains. You need to implement APIs, open and standards-based APIs, so that you can communicate consistently, northbound, southbound, east-west also. And then you need a data model that stitches it all together. Most telcos are on part of that journey. Maybe they've implemented phase one in terms of the abstraction for new services. Maybe some have implemented the APIs. But most are on at some aspect of that journey. It's when you bring all three together of hierarchy, APIs and data model that you get that true value and you start to get the economies of scale across your business. So most are on the journey.
Excellent. Well, Josie, Thomas, Kailem, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks for having us.